couple of months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed the phone on the counter, and went to watch some TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with the text messages, and he agreed. At around 11:20, she felt drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked the phone back up from his hand to inspect it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken, until one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. My house was built in 1904. It is a single family home, wood frame setting on concrete block foundation. I've been living here for about 12 years. This happened to my brother. About 10 years ago, my brother and his best friend had started a garage band playing mostly Spanish rock. Alternative music, but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons. They would practice into the early evening, and they would usually call it quits by 8 p.m. This was the time I usually showed up and went to bed, because I worked the graveyard shift. This happened in late fall, so the days were quite shorter. They had just finished a long session when the decision to head to someone else's house came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so they could load up the equipment. Everyone had filed out of the basement, but the tricky part was that they needed to walk all the way to the back of the basement, up the stairs, through the kitchen doorway, down the hall into the living room, and out into the front porch. Everyone was outside sitting in my brother's truck waiting for him. My brother was walking up the back stairs when he remembered that he had left his pancakes in a to-go container sitting on the speaker in the basement. He made the decision to go back. Now the basement is not clean. With full sight lines there had been partitions made, and the boiler and the main heating unit are right smack in the middle. So after my brother walks back, he's about to retrieve his food container, when out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. It is a shadowy figure, right at his peripheral vision. This feeling of dread and uneasiness washed over my brother. We had been taught that if you were in the presence of a spirit or a ghost, and you felt a bad vibe, to say a quick prayer, or cuss at it. My brother chose the latter. He basically just told it, "Hey, fuck you. I don't have time for this shit." My brother started to walk to the back of the basement and briskly up the stairs, closing doors and turning off lights as he was walking out. The last light switch is on the opposite side of the front door. Luckily the door was open and the light from the street lamp was flooding the living room with its amber light. My brother said he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around. As he flicked the last switch, the living room went dark, as did the rest of the house. As he stepped out, he pulled on the door, closing it behind him. Still holding his food container in one hand, he jogged down the few porch steps. He walked towards the front gate. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard but no rear garage. As he closed the gap between himself and the friend-laden truck, he kind of smiled and thought things over in his head, mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. He climbed into the driver's seat of the truck, putting on his seatbelt and getting ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of his house, when one of his friends asked, "Hey, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" My brother answered, "What do you mean? He went to work early tonight. He's already gone. Do you see his car anywhere?" The next question they asked, "So then who was walking behind you when you were leaving the house?" One night when it was maybe 10 or 12, I had trouble falling asleep. My bedroom was the entire top floor of the house, with my bed and such being on the left side and storage closets and a play area being on the right. I was lying in bed when I heard a noise from the other side of the room and see a rocking horse begin to rock. It was sitting just outside one of the storage closet doors. He proceeded to rock his way halfway across the room and stopped dead under the ceiling light. At this point I was freaking out and just buried my head under my blankets and never peeked out again until the morning. It was all confirmed to not be a dream, as the rocking horse was still in the middle of my room when I woke. Furthermore, I got a stern reprimand from my parents for being up out of bed playing with my toys well past my bedtime. Their bedroom was directly below the storage closet play area, and I'd heard the creaking of the rocking horse shuffling across the room. I grew up in New Mexico and was always very into the outdoors, hiking, camping, rock climbing, etc. One summer when I was 19, I went on a 4-day, 3-night camping trip near my parents' house on my own. Anyway, I brought my camera and took a lot of pictures. When I came back and developed my film, there were 3 extra pictures that I didn't take, of me, sleeping, 1 each night. The child is scared beyond belief. He can't read the writing on the wall. He knows the man is under his bed. Like any child, he pretends he slept through the whole thing and he hasn't awoken yet. He lays still as the bodies, quietly hearing the breathing from under his bed. An hour passes and his eyes are adjusting more and more to the darkness. He tries to make out the words, but it's a struggle. He gasps when he finally makes out the sentence, "I know you're awake." He feels something shift underneath his bed. Mommy told me never to go in the basement, but I wanted to see what was making the noise. It kind of sounded like a puppy. I wanted to see the puppy, so I opened the basement door and tiptoed down a bit. I didn't see a puppy, and then Mommy yanked me out of the basement and yelled at me. Mommy had never yelled at me before, and it made me sad and I cried. Then Mommy told me never to go into the basement again, and she gave me a cookie. That made me feel better, so I didn't ask her why the boy in the basement was making noises like a puppy, or why he had no hands or feet. The man leaves his house every morning to walk to work and passes a mental hospital surrounded by a wooden fence. Every morning the patients are out in the yard and he can hear them saying in unison, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. One day he gets curious and looks through the hole in the fence. Suddenly a stick shoots out and pokes him in the eye. "Fuck!" he says to himself. While walking away pissed off, he can hear the patient say, 11, 11, 11, 11.